Matthew 13. This is the homework assignment, and we'll review it, and then we'll probably add a few little details on the end. But the simple way to get the notes organized for this answer, because I don't ever give simple answers, do I? The way to simplify the notes for this answer is 4 points. Real simple. The parable of the tares, that's point 1. Point 2 is event number 1 of Revelation 14. Point 3, event number 2 of Revelation 14. Point 4, let's check our work. Okay? Simple. So let's get into it. Matthew chapter 13, verse 27. He's telling us a parable of these tares. And beginning at verse, verse 20, verse 37, I believe, he starts giving you the answer key for what each item is representing. So you read along with me, because I'm going to read something different than you're reading. I'm going to read the answer key into the passage. So watch it as we read. Matthew 13:27. So the angels of the Son of Man came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow the children of the kingdom in the world? From whence then hath it children of the wicked one? The Son of Man said unto the angels, The devil hath done this. The angels said unto the Son of Man, Wilt thou that we, the angels, go and gather the children of the wicked one up? But the Son of Man said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the children of the wicked one, ye root up also the children of the kingdom with them. Let the children of the wicked one and the children of the kingdom grow together until the end of the world. And in the time of the end of the world, the Son of Man will say to the angels, Gather you together first the children of the wicked one, and bind them in bundles to burn them.
What was that reference?
She just woke up. Matthew 13, verse 27 to 30. And I told you to follow along because I'm going to read something totally different. I'm reading the answer key into the passage.
Okay.
If you go down to verse 37 to 40, he tells you what each thing represents.
Right.
So rather than saying the code word, I'm going to give you what he says it represents. When he says the reapers are the angels, anytime it says reaper, I'm going to add angel, because that's what Jesus said it stands for. Anytime he says the good seed are the children of the kingdom, I'm going to read children of the kingdom, because Jesus said that's what it means. So that's why I'm reading it the way I'm reading it. You understand?
Yeah.
You're not following. Otherwise, do this. Somebody read verse 27.
So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in the field? From whence then hath it tares?
Okay. So, what I'm going to read is what Jesus says each of those things represent. Otherwise, what we end up with is exactly what he says I've written this for. I've written this so that they can see and not understand. They can hear and not perceive. But he says, to you it's given to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. And then he tells them what the answers are. So when I say, what's yours say, reapers? Servants? Verse 27. So the third word. Servants. I'm going to say angels. So the angels of the Son of Man came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow, yours says good seed? Jesus says the good seed are the children of the kingdom. Sir, didst not thou sow the children of the kingdom in the world? See what the world is? Yes. Correct. So forth, so on. Now let's go down to where I woke Toby up. Verse 30. Verse 30. Let the children of the wicked one and the children of the kingdom, because he says both, grow together until the end of the world, because he says harvest, and he explains harvest is the end of the world. And in the time of the end of the world, the Son of Man will say to the angels, the reapers, gather ye together first the children of the wicked one, and bind them in bundles. For what reason? To burn them. But gather the children of the kingdom into my, yours says barn, obviously that's the kingdom. Okay, so that's the way Jesus intends you to think when you read it. When you read it, those are the things that your mind should be connecting, and our minds don't. So it's a good thing he gave us the answer key. So what I've done is just supplied the answers Jesus said are there, put them right over top of the things he said they represent. So now we have exactly what he means when he said something. Now, our assignment was to compare that to two events in Revelation and find out how it matches what we saw in Matthew 13. Because in Revelation, the two events are different. So let's look at Revelation. Revelation 14, verse 14. Revelation 14, verse 14. It says, And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and is in his hand a sharp sickle. And another, what is that? Angel? What did we learn from Matthew? That would be a reaper. Came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud. Thrust in. So who is the angel talking to? Talking to the Son of Man. So who's the one doing the reaping? The Son of Man. Okay, so we'll keep that in mind. Came out crying with a loud voice to sat on the cloud. Thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest, or end of the world, of the earth is ripe. Okay? What is he reaping? Well, it is people, but what does he call it? What's ripe? The earth. He doesn't really tell us. Okay. That the lack of an answer there is going to tell us something when we get to the next event. Verse 16. And the Son of Man, or he, that sat on the cloud, thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. Okay, so now we're going to compare that to Matthew 13 and find out what is similar or what is different, and find out what we have. So missing from our parable in event 1 of Revelation 14 is angels plural. We're only told of angel singular. So that doesn't line up. The other thing is there are no tares in what we read. Nothing mentions tares. Nothing mentions the wicked. Now, you may read some wicked in there. You may read some tares in there. But it doesn't say it. So that's not what, we're not comparing apples and apples. The other thing that's missing in Matthew 13, there is a strong emphasis on gather these things up to put in the fire, and we're going to burn it with fire. He mentions fire twice, once in the parable and once in the explanation of the parable. So fire is important. There's no fire mentioned in first event of Revelation 14. So that's another thing that's missing. And then, of course, the reaper is the Son of Man, not the angels. So that's different than Matthew 13. Now, it's the saints. Look at verse 15. Revelation 14, verse 15. Um, For the harvest of the earth is ripe. Okay, so it's the saints who are getting reaped, not the sinners. Now, you might not see a whole lot of proof for that yet, so just keep that in the back of your mind. This is going to represent a tribulation rapture. That's what it's going to represent. Now, I know something that's going to throw people off is when they see the harvest. Because harvest, he said, was the end of the world, right? Okay. So if he's doing a harvest here, how come that's not the end of the world? The end doesn't mean the final end. It may be like a message I preach, and I have an end several times before we're finally done. A harvest comes in 3 segments. You have first fruit. When you plant a field, some come up early, first fruit. Then you have the main harvest, ingathering. Then you have what comes up late, the gleanings. So, just because he's saying harvest doesn't mean he's saying everything is finished. He's just saying some point of reaping what is out there.
But he's already done the first fruit.
He is the first fruit, correct. We are the harvest.
Okay.
And the church, or the tribulation saints, will be the gleanings. However, even in that, there are 3 gleanings. I don't have time to do it all, but there are 3, 3, 3, and 3. It's a total of 9 because 9's the fruit of the Spirit. There are 3 that come up when he comes up. There are 3 representations of the main harvest. There's 3 that happen in the tribulation. So right here, he's going to say, this is a harvest, even though it's not the final harvest. In Matthew 24, verse 30. Matthew 24, 30. It says, Then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven. We saw clouds. With power and great glory. Verse 31. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the 4 winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Okay, so that's one event. Look at verse 36. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. There's some event that's held secret. It's not our rapture. That's not what he's talking about. He's not talking church age here. He's talking to Jews about a Jewish event, the end times. Okay, so that's an unknown event, and I think that matches with Revelation 14, the first event, verse 14 to 17. You'll see it again in Isaiah 26:19. Isaiah 26:19 to 21. It says, Thy dead men shall live together with my dead body, shall they arise. Awake, and sing, ye that dwell in the dust, for thy dew is the dew of herbs, and the earth shall cast out the dead. Come, my people, enter thou into thy chambers, and shut thy doors about thee. Hide thyself, as it were, for a little moment, until the indignation be overpast. Okay, let's make sure we're getting all of this. What's the indignation? Of course, that's tribulation. God's wrath being poured out. Okay, where are they, David, that's going to fall. Where are they going in that they're going to shut the doors and hide themselves? Petra. Correct. Now, what happened before somebody going into a chamber to hide themselves? Verse 19. A rapture. A resurrection and a rapture. That's not church age. That's tribulation. The church age had not been revealed. There was not necessarily going to be a church age based on the response of Israel. So I say that verse 19 is the first half. Sometime in the first half, there is an unknown gathering and a rapture. After that, they've got to run to Petra and hide. Now, we'll see the scary thing about that in a minute, or in a little bit, maybe in an hour or two. Verse 21. For behold, the Lord cometh out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. And the earth also shall disclose her blood, and shall no more cover her slain. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of death and a lot of dying that goes on. And it's not just going to be one-sided. It's going to be a lot of Jews. It's going to be a lot of Israelites who have decided, maybe they took the first 3.5 years and were on the fence. They didn't get the mark, but they didn't really follow the Messiah. They didn't obey the commandments. Then the rapture happened at the midpoint. And they said, oh, I found a verse over in Malachi chapter 4 and 1 in Hebrews that says he's coming back a second time, and I got a chance, so I'm going to try to endure to the end. And so they start doing that. But then they get killed. What happens to them then? What happens to them then is interesting. Otherwise, if there was no deterrent to wait, you know what would happen? Everybody would wait until the second half to decide whether or not they really wanted to live according to what God said they needed to. So you know what happens to them? They lose their ability to live in the kingdom. They don't come up from the grave until after the 1,000 years is finished. And I'll give you a verse for that in a minute, but it was here, so I had to insert it, so it made sense. Okay, event number 2 in Revelation 14. Event number 1 was a rapture, an unknown date and time that just, if you're ready, you go. Event number 2 of Revelation 14. That'll be verse 17 to 20. We're going to compare this to Matthew 13. It says, and another reaper, or angel, came out of the temple which is in heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. And another, verse 18, and another reaper, that'll be reaper number 2, another angel, came out from the altar, which had power over fire. Okay, that's something that we saw in Matthew 13 that we've not seen yet. So that's matching now. And cried with a loud voice to him that had the sharp sickle. Okay, this time the him that has a sharp sickle is an angel, saying, thrust in thy sharp sickle, and gather the cluster of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. Okay, now we're told what is being reaped. And we'll look at that in detail in a minute. Verse 19. And the reaper, or angel, thrust in his sickle into the earth, and gathered of the vine of the earth, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was trodden without the city, and blood came out of the winepress, even unto the horse bridles, by the space of 1,600 furlongs. Okay, so what we have here is a different event. And if we compare it to Matthew 13, we see angels plural. Reapers, plural. We found that. We see fire is present. That matches Matthew 13. Someone is destroyed like the tares being burned. That matches. A vine is reaped for destruction, like tares being gathered for burning. Look at a few places to find out what this vine is that's being reaped, because you might naturally just think, well, that must be a good thing. That's a vine, a grape, that's good. Not necessarily. Deuteronomy 29:18. Deuteronomy 29:18 and 20. Lest there should be among you, am I in the right spot? Lest there should be among you you man or woman, family or tribe, whose heart turneth away this day from the Lord our God, to go and serve gods of these nations, lest there should be among you a root of bitterness, of a root that beareth gall and wormwood. Okay, so he's saying something can creep into even a Jew that's a root. And it come to pass, when he heareth the words of the curse, that he blesseth himself in his heart, saying, I shall have peace, though I walk in the imagination of mine own heart, to add drunkenness to thirst. Isn't that what's going to happen in the tribulation? They say, I'll have peace because I'll go get the mark, or I'll appear as though I'm going to get along with the Antichrist. Okay, same thing. Verse 20. The Lord will not spare him, but in the anger of the Lord and his jealousy shall smoke against that man, and all the curses that are written in the book shall lie upon him, and the Lord shall blot out his name from under heaven, just like if you got a mark. Look at chapter 32, verse 32. Chapter 32, verse 32. He says, for their vine, as in a grapevine, is of the vine of Sodom and of the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are grapes of gall. Their clusters are bitter. Okay, so there is a good grape. There's a good vine. It's a choice vine. But it's not a wild one. And it's not the devil's. The devil's got a counterfeit. And that's the one he's reaping here. We know it is because he's destroying it. He wouldn't be doing that to his own choice vine. His own choice vine he's going to cultivate. This one he's destroying. Look at Hebrews 12. Hebrews 12, verse 15. Hebrews is not written to the church. Hebrews is written to, just like it says, Hebrews, Jews. That's right. Verse 15. Looking diligently, lest any man fail of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up, trouble you, and thereby many be defiled. There's that root again. Something's springing up. I don't have time to run all the references, but run the references on a wild vine. You'll find it. Verse 16. Lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. For you know, okay, now Esau should have been a Jew. He had the right line, but God rejected him. Okay, just like there's going to be Jews that God rejects in the tribulation because they're not doing what he's told them to do. Where are we? Verse 17. For you know how that afterward, when he would have inherited the blessing, he was rejected, just like some of the children of the kingdom will be rejected, even though the kingdom was prepared for them, if they're not doing according to what God says they have to do. Obey the commandments and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Okay, so that's Armageddon. The second event in Revelation 14 is obviously Armageddon. We see the blood coming up to the horses' bridles. So that's a clear explanation of what's going on. Now, let's check our work. The way we'll check our work is we'll go to something that we know is the end. And we'll work backwards. Just like when you're doing a math problem, you can do the math coming down, and then you can do subtraction going up to check your work. Checking it like that. We're going to do the same thing by checking our work here. We're going to go to the end and work our way backwards and see if everything still lines up correctly. So let's check it. Revelation chapter 15. This chapter is about 7 angels and 7 last plagues. Okay, that's matching because there's supposed to be angels plural at the very end, like we saw in Matthew 13. Look at verse 2, Revelation 15:2. He said, "And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God." This is very interesting if you pay attention to it, because he's saying, right about the time these 7 angels are going out to do the final dirty work and finish this thing up, I looked up in heaven and I saw up there were people there who had been in the tribulation. But they're not in the tribulation. They're up in heaven and the tribulation is still going on. These are trib saints in heaven, but the tribulation is not over. They match the harvest that we saw in Revelation 14, verse 14 to 16, that first event. If a believing Jew is killed after the midpoint of the tribulation, after that rapture, that first event, if he's killed, he'll miss the coming of the kingdom. Like the 5 foolish virgins, they missed it. Why? They were dozing off. Half of them went out, half of them got left. That'll be in Matthew chapter 25. Okay, so we've seen chapter 15 is going to tell us about the end. And there's multiple angels there. Look at verse 5. No, that's not where I want to go. Go to Revelation 20, verse 4. I'm going to show you why I say that if somebody living in the tribulation didn't make it to the rapture at the midpoint, they had better be sure they endure to the end. That's why there's all those verses on enduring to the end. The same shall be saved. If they don't endure to the end, they're not going into the millennium. Here's why. Revelation 20, verse 4. "And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus, and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. Okay, those are the saints we saw when he said in chapter 15, verse 2, "I looked to heaven, and there they were." But let's see something else, verse 5. "But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection, not the second." These are not wicked people. These are just people. They just waited too long. Okay, and they got killed in the melee that's going to happen in Armageddon or prior to that in one of the plagues. Well, they weren't watching when they were supposed to have been at the first half of the tribulation. So their punishment is they'll still get a kingdom, but they're going to wait 1,000 years to get it. They're not going to be around for the setting up of the kingdom, for the coronation of the king, those great things. Back to Revelation 15. Revelation 15, let's go to verse 6. Revelation 15:6, and the 7 angels, or reapers, like we saw earlier, came out of the temple. Okay, this is all good. This is matching what we saw in chapter 13 of Matthew. Drop down to verse 7. And one of the 4 beasts gave unto the 7 angels 7 golden vials full of the wrath of God, who liveth forever and ever. Who liveth forever and ever. So what's going on here is these angels, there's reapers, but they're not just reaping, they're destroying. They're not going to be gentle when they pluck these tares. They're ripping them out of the ground. And they're doing it with savagery. Chapter 16, verse 1. And I heard a great voice out of the temple say to the 7 angels, Go your ways, and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth. This is the second half of the tribulation, the great tribulation, the wrath of God being poured out. And it comes in 7 stages. Verse 2. The first angel, and the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome, grievous sore upon men which had the mark of the beast. Okay, so he's plagued men. I saw something a while back on somebody had gotten a tattoo, and there was something in the pigment that their blood type fought against, and it produced a huge bubble, and the doctor said that it had to either be cut out, had to have a new skin graft. It was a very serious surgery. God's going to do the same thing with these people who have the mark of the beast, only it's not going to be a simple fix that a doctor can handle. It's going to be a God-sized problem that nobody fixes. Verse 4. And the third angel poured out his vial. Did I do the second angel? No. Verse 3. The second angel poured out his vial, and the sea turns to blood like dead men. The third angel's in verse 4. He takes the rivers, and they become blood. Verse 8 is the fourth angel. He pours out his vial, and the sun has a problem. The power is given unto him to scorch men with fire, like we saw in Matthew 13. Verse 16, the fifth angel pours out his vial, and darkness happens, just like Jesus warns them in Matthew 24. They ask, what's the sign of the end of the world? He says, the sun's going to be darkened. Okay? Darkness right there. Revelation 16:12. This is the sixth angel. And we're going to take a little side trail, but remember we put a bookmark right here, the sixth angel, because that's where we are if we were making sense. Now we're going to run side trails. This is the sixth angel. Okay, the sixth angel is important because what's the mark of the beast? 666. So 6 is important. God didn't do things by accident. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. Okay, so this is the preparation for a battle. Here's the battle. Verse, imagine it, 13. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are the spirits of devils, working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth, and to the whole world to gather them to battle. of the great day of God Almighty. Okay, that's obvious. We know exactly where we are. If we're doing the math, we're at the end, the battle of Armageddon. Okay, verse 15. Behold, this is Jesus talking. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. Now, he's not saying future. If you'll watch for me, I'll come when you're not looking and you won't have to worry about anything. He's saying this as though it's regret. Blessed are the people who made it out in chapter 14, verse 14. And the rest of you are going to be seeing what I just described all these angels doing. So, that matches with Malachi 4:2 and Hebrews 9:28. So, you better hope I hope nobody here is around for any of this, but if we're talking to, maybe if a tribulation person sees this on YouTube, they can pull it up. You better hope that you make it out at the midpoint. Because if you miss it, then you'll be seeing all of the wrath of God being poured out. And you don't want to see that. And there's a chance you might not make it, because there's going to be a whole lot of death, even of righteous individuals. And those righteous individuals still get a righteous reward, but they got to wait 1,000 years for it. Look at chapter 16, verse 16. And he gathered them together unto a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. Here it goes. Now we're still on angel number 6. So let's find angel 7, verse 17. And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air. And there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, It is done. You know, like what Jesus cried on the cross, it's finished. Verse 18. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings, earthquakes. Verse 19. And that great city was divided into 3 parts. And the city of the nations fell. And the cities, plural, of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Now, he's doing the same thing I do repeatedly. He finished, but he didn't finish, and he's going to finish again, and now it's over, and now it's the end. No, now it's the end. Okay. Look at verse 17. He says it's done. Okay. But it's not really done. Verse 16 was Armageddon. Okay, that should have finished it all off, shouldn't it? No, he's got the reason for angel number 7 is his final thing that he's been saving for last. He can't mix this one in there, or you would think it may have accidentally happened. He saves this one to do in the presence of people so they can enjoy the show. And it is verse 19. He wants to destroy Babylon. Babylon gets its own angel to destroy it. That's a special event. Now, that's the 7 angels. And since we're here now, we need to look at this last little event because it's so exciting. The explanation of the work of the 7th angel, the destruction of Mystery Babylon. Now, Mystery Babylon is just like it sounds, a mystery. And so just like we saw in Matthew 13, you're going to need to decipher some things. It's not going to be real plain. You're going to have to figure it out. Okay, he says right on the title, this is going to be a mystery. That means start digging. Chapter 17, verse 1. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, and said unto me, Come up hither, and I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Okay, he started this language thing again. He likes to do this where he tells you things and you don't really know what he's talking about unless you find something that proves that's what he means. Verse 5. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon, the Great, the mother of harlots and abomination of the earth. Okay, let's get the answer key so we can understand it. Chapter 17, verse 8. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, yet is. Y'all understand all that? Something is coming out of the pit. That something one day was. Then it went to the pit, so now on earth it's not. But one day it'll be back, and then it will be. That's Judas Iscariot. He lived. He's no longer here. One day he's coming back. In Acts chapter 1, or maybe it's chapter 2, when they picked the replacement for Judas, they say they have to find a replacement for Judas because he fell by transgression that he could go to his own place. As if he has his own place, not hell. Maybe his own place is in hell or in the bottomless pit somewhere. Anyway, that's the son of perdition. Look at verse 9. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth. Okay, now we're starting to figure out who this woman is. Whoever it is, she's sitting on 7 mountains.
She's a big one.
She's a big one. We're going to find something that's sitting on 7 mountains, and it'll be clear. Verse 11. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th and is of the 7th, and goeth into perdition. All of these are important things. I probably don't have time to really delve into all these. I'm just going to fly through it quickly, and you'll be familiar with it, and then when you study it on your own, you'll figure it out. Verse 17. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree to give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God be fulfilled. Here's that woman again, verse 18. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city. Okay, so she's a city. And here's something unique about her. Which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Do you know one city that sits on 7 mountains that rules over kings?
Rome.
There's only one, the Vatican. It sits on 7 hills, 7 mountains. And that was the reason for the Protestant movement, is because the king could only be crowned king if the Pope, supposedly the vicar of Christ, gave him sovereign, God-given rule. The Pope had to agree to that. So the Pope was reigning over the kings. That's why there's a split with Henry VIII, because he wants a divorce. The Pope says, no, you don't have grounds for divorce. You can't get a divorce. Henry VIII says, who do you think you are? I'm king. I'll do what I want to do. Okay, if you're not going to do it, then we'll set up our own religion, and I'll just do what I want to do. Okay, so that's where that came about. But she is right there in that verse, very clearly. She reigns over the kings of the earth. The woman is Mystery Babylon, Rome, Catholicism, the spiritual element to it, the ideology of it, not the buildings, not the people, not something physical that you can put your hands on, because it's not a woman that's going to sit on 7 mountains. It's not a woman who's going to sit on a bunch of people. He tells you later on that the waters are many people. So it's figurative language because this is a spiritual element, the ideology of Rome. That's what he's talking about. That's who the female is. This woman obviously is a woman, okay? Female. She's called a woman repeatedly. She's not transgender. She's not making up her mind. One day she's one thing, one day she's the next. She has a gender. It's female. That'll be in verse 3, chapter 17, verse 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. This woman kills the saints, two categories, the saints and the martyrs of Jesus. Okay, that'll be in chapter 17, verse 6. This woman rules over nations, just what we read in verse 17. She rules over kings, verse 18. She's a great city, verse 18. She sits on 7 mountains, verse 9. She's Roman Catholicism. Okay, that's clear. We understand that one. Now let's find the beast. Okay, because he told us about a beast. The beast is Roman Catholicism, the physical element. One is the spiritual, the ideology. One is the physical element. It carries the woman. Chapter 17, verse 7. It has 7 heads, as in the 7 mountains. It's clear. Okay, that's going to be the beast. The other thing we have is the dragon. The dragon. What's the dragon? Revelation 20, verse 2. He says, and he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil. Spelled it out plain and clear. The dragon is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. Okay, so the dragon is the devil, Satan. This is all throughout your Bible, and I'm going to throw a whole bunch of things at you real quick and we'll be done. There's an unholy trinity that happens in the tribulation. And this has been pictured and given throughout the Bible so that when it happens, it should click. Just like it should have clicked when Jesus showed up as Messiah. The unholy trinity. In Numbers 22, we have a story. It's of Balaam, Balak, and Baal. Bunch of bees. The triple B gang. Here we go. Get ready to move fast. Balaam in Numbers 22 is the dragon. Satan, the father, part of the unholy trinity. And of course that is the devil. Or in Job chapter 41, it's Leviathan. Okay, that's all under the heading of Baal. Balak in Numbers 22 is the beast of Revelation. He's Satan, the unclean spirit, as he mimics the Trinity. He's Roman Catholicism, and he's Abaddon in Revelation 9, verse 11. Balaam of Numbers 22 is the false prophet of Revelation. He's Satan the Son in the mimic of the Trinity. He's the Antichrist, Judas Iscariot. And in Job 40, he's Behemoth. And there it is. That's a lot. There's a whole lot in that book, and putting them all together, that's just a bunch of pieces. Now you've got some puzzle pieces to move around and try to fit things together and find supporting elements to. But if you don't see it once, then it'll be hard to find them all on your own. But once I throw them all out there, then y'all can start playing with them and moving them around and seeing what fits and what doesn't. All right, that's the homework, and that's enough for tonight. Ooh, we went long.